All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joining us today for our Optimizing Our Network to Power Your Business webinar and conversation. My name is Jason Friedlander. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at the Verizon Media Platform. We have a great conversation for you today, so let's get right into it. For those of you who are new to Verizon Media Platform, just spend a few slides quickly telling you what we're about. We believe that we are the foundation for the future. We have a platform that delivers premium experiences that consumers demand with an industry-leading platform renowned for its performance, reliability, security, and scale. Every given day, we deliver billions of daily digital experiences, whether you're a social media company trying to deliver social media to your end users around the world, whether you're a banking institution that's looking to power your websites and your apps and protect your consumers' data, or you're a big game software company and you want to handle downloads, to, of course, watching your favorite shows and movies online. We power all of those experiences for multiple customers around the world. And we can do that anywhere in the world. Verizon Media can power your business 24 hours a day, 365 days a year on 6 continents. Our network is at 105 terabits per second. That's our capacity currently, and it's continually expanding every day. We've added more capacity to our network in the last 2 years than most CDNs have in probably the last 20. Not only do we have the capacity, but we have the reach to guarantee your end users have the fastest and highest quality experiences with over 150 points of presence over the globe and over 5,000 interconnects to last mile networks as well. So our platform consists of our streaming product, delivery product, and security product. And today in our conversation, we're going to focus on our delivery product. It's the second largest public CDN in the world. It came out of what was the Edgecast content delivery network, which was acquired by Verizon in late 2013. And on any given day, our network powers about 10% of global internet traffic. And as we look ahead and we plan ahead, the streaming demand is increasing, and we're consistently outpacing the growth of the most complex use cases to ensure our network always has the capacity for our customers to manage their business. We've seen this growth over the last few years because of changes in consumer behavior, more use of digital news, entertainment, e-commerce, and the fact that, there's supposed to be 50 billion connected devices this year, which if you calculate that out, that's about 6 per person worldwide. And these consumers are starting to demand, or have always demanded, the quality, whether it's video or how quickly a site loads or how quickly a tweet or a social post loads. They want to make sure it's the highest quality. So we're constantly adapting and we're responding to those changes. Just some quick numbers to look at on our network that we see, especially in the times that we're in now. We've seen a 20% increase in delivery traffic just since January 2020. And we all know what that's in relationship to. And in April, we delivered over 6 exabytes of data transferred across our network, which is great. And there's been amazing uptick in growth on VOD and dynamic and static content traffic, really related to entertainment, news, gaming, and content downloads. A lot of the things that we're going to continue to talk about in the upcoming slides. And what does that look like, year over year growth? We've seen about 50% year over year increase in delivery traffic. And that's important to show you how the industry is changing, how more and more people are relying online, but it's also to show you how, having a resilient, performant network is super important, because you have to plan ahead, and you have to have your network has to be built out to be able to handle spikes like this and increases without having to go back and add, new pops, immediately, to make sure that consumers globally are always going to have that best experience. So to talk about how we do that, how we manage traffic growth, we have great conversation today. We have 2 of the smartest people I know, well, at least 2 of the smartest people in this webinar. We've got Dave Andrews, who is the chief architect at Verizon Media. He oversees the evolution of the Edgecast content delivery network from the beginning, and the Uplink video platform more recently to what's now called the Media Platform. Previously, Dave brought several web security products to market at Verizon Media, worked for startups in the LA area, and he's building security products in the virtualization and CDN spaces. He holds a PhD in computer security from a small university in Australia. So, Dave, if you want to say hi.
Hello.
And we're also joined by Colin Razor. Colin's been with us for a long time as well. He's the Director of Traffic and Performance Management at Verizon Media. He's responsible for the flow and performance of internet traffic in and out of the media platform. It's super important, especially when you talk about, our POPs and our last mile connections and the ingest. And Colin and his team develop automation and performance tracking tools that drive constant improvement of our services, relying on billions of data points describing global traffic patterns updated every minute. That was my previous job. Just kidding. Colin, you want to say hi?
Hello, thanks for having me, Jason.
Let's just jump right into the topics we're going to cover today. So we're going to cover a handful. So stick with us. Some great things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about using data for proactive monitoring, which is a lot of what Colin and his team do, AI-assisted traffic management, managing traffic profiles, managing caches, handling flash crowds, and ensuring performance for every customer, which we think is really important because not only does it tie the technology we've built, but the service we offer for our customers as well. So why don't we dive right in? So one way of monitoring a network is to assume a more reactive approach. So a lot of our competitors we see do that, whereby you collect metrics on everything and you look for the anomalies and then you take the action. But we've opted to take a more proactive approach. So Colin, you kind of leaned on it a little bit when talking about what you do, but can you talk about some of the data that we collect and maybe some of the systems that you built? I know this was a one-man team at one point. Now you've built a lot of systems to be able to do a lot of the things that the humans used to do. Be great to dive into some of that.
Absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity, Jason. I think, without going into too much detail into all of the data points, because they are in the billions of metrics that are collected, we have a philosophy that is really operationally focused. Every data point that we do collect, we want to make sure that we have some operational knob to affect that data point. So it's great to be able to look for anomalous behavior, but it's even better to be able to affect that anomalous behavior. And in being able to affect it, you have to have the operational controls. Those operational controls are everything from managing where traffic is inbound and directed at resources that are available to take that capacity, to influencing how we respond or how we cache individual behaviors for the application stack. And looking at all of these metrics from a full stack perspective, and then operating on the metrics that we know have impact the tunables that we can control, that give us the controls to provide iterative and effective management of how the customer is using the platform.
One of the things that's kind of interesting when we talk about how we kind of analyze and affect change on the network, when we talk about being reactive or being proactive, is really the maturity and understanding of cause and effect. So we end up with, as Colin said, lots and lots of signals flowing out of the system. And one of the things that we find is that there is strong correlation and causation between certain signals which are practically invisible to customers and have no customer impact, but if left unchecked, will lead to customer impacting degradation and issues. So when we talk about being proactive, one of the ways that we do that is by through some kind of more advanced analysis than just putting something on the screen and looking at it or setting static thresholds, is actually modeling what is happening behind the scenes and modeling that causation. So it allows us to say something like, if you see this particular metric, which is relatively benign, increase, we know that in the course of the next 30 minutes, if that's sustained and this other thing happens, it's going to lead to a larger issue. So we can be more proactive and say, look, we're seeing something that isn't actually impact yet, but it will be shortly, so we're going to action it right now. And that's where all the points that Colin was talking about come in, where we want to understand what do we know we can change that will move that in the right direction.
So are any of those tools that we build productized for our customers?
There are many tools that we're currently in the process of productizing. We have one internally that we refer to as Anglerfish, which we're releasing as Edge Insights. And it is a it's an exceptionally scalable platform that allows for a customer to see the relationship of their content to our POP locations. And you can ask it questions about cache profiles, about ASNs, about request rates, about file extensions. It has this kind of like dynamic key value infrastructure that allows you to ask it really unique questions and then compare that data to each other, both in dynamic plotting and in JSON representations.
It must be reassuring to know when you guys build something internally that the customers can also take advantage of as well is probably a major benefit. All right, let's jump to the next thing which is we're going to talk about managing traffic profiles. So one of the things that I think we do that's pretty unique is we track the long-term caching profile for each customer. Colin or Dave, can you talk a little bit about detecting and managing those profiles from our capacity, utilization, deployment perspectives?
So like what we're talking about in terms of customer profiles is looking for commonly occurring issues that are basically mistakes, right? So rather than deferring responsibility for how the CDN kind of captures and delivers your traffic, Colin's team has put together a series of tools that really enable both internal tools and, shortly following the theme of exposing things that we mature internally to our customers, allows customers to kind of proactively observe and triage and dig in and really get kind of notifications that something is probably not right here, right? There's an issue that and there are relatively broad and very kind of simplistic rules that we can leverage to get a lot of mileage out of that. And basically, it's kind of like a health check for your CDN configuration. Like, is your CDN config doing a good job for you? And if not, you'll get an alert. We can action it. You can action it yourself. And then the idea is proactively reaching out and helping you get better performance out of the system.
Is there any real world examples either of you can think of, obviously without mentioning company names, that potentially, had an issue, Colin, where they didn't realize something was, not being cached or being cached and weren't taking advantage of our tools were able to help them optimize delivery?
Yeah, not mentioning any names, but we had a large internal site that uses a third-party resizer. And that resizer passes query strings to file names, and the customer's configuration was not caching those resized files. So every request was actually being resized. And our automatic detection systems, we have an internal product called Siegel that tracks this type of behavior and determines if there's certain file types that, depending upon their last modified time and depending upon their popularity on the edge, makes some wise decisions on whether or not the object can be cached. And it was alerting us to the fact that there was millions of requests for a subset of objects. And upon further research into that alert, we quickly identified that since there was unique caching available for the query stringed objects, that we could actually improve performance substantially and decrease cost with the third party that was doing the image resizing. So I think that's a decent use case for a third party scenario. There's also many others, but I think more often than not, we see interesting things change that have the most impact when we weren't expecting to see those things change.
All right, let's go on to the next one here. So we've built all these tools, we've collected all this data. Obviously, it's impossible for a human probably to go through all of this, understand any of the patterns, or, even if they could, they would probably miss patterns that something that, AI could really find. What type of work have we done to optimize our delivery performance expertise, and how we leverage machine learning to improve the performance for our customers?
Yeah, I'll try to address that with two unique systems that we have internally for managing traffic that really rely upon modeling, rely upon AI, and rely upon automation from the metrics that they receive. Our primary traffic management tool for automating where requests land on the edge collects information about where we have traffic spikes, where we have the resources to service those traffic spikes, and then intentionally tries to kind of flatten the spiked curve for customer live events and for regular streaming profiles. What this gives us is the system makes really good decisions. You made a statement earlier that resonated with me, is that no one human can do this. And I know because I've tried, and I can tell you 100% that machines are considerably better at it than somebody sitting down and trying to make a decision about which way things should go. So taking that into account, we built a system, and internally it's called Heteractus. It understands all of our announcements. It understands all of our traffic flows and the capacities, and then it makes wise decisions and scores those decisions about where the traffic should land when we start to see spikes.
We've talked about, what it took, the data and all that stuff to build AI. Maybe we should have covered this topic earlier on, but I think it's important because it's been mentioned a lot so far, is managing caches. And I think, a lot of customers are always impressed on how we seem to handle and optimize cache for delivery, especially when we're talking about video. Dave, what are some of the really kind of unique things that we do, that we manage caches for our customers that they may not, like you guys have said, may not even be aware of what we're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's probably worth just a quick high-level review of kind of what are the basics here, right? Like, how does this typically work in the simplest possible model? So the simplest possible model here, the base level for our system basically is a routing protocol called CARP, which is Cache Array Routing Protocol, I think. What this allows us to do is basically create an ordered list of all of the pieces, all of the machines in any given location and it's basically sorted by likelihood that they will have a particular asset. So the idea there is that you can hit your load balancer and go directly to the machine that is most likely to have the asset and generate a cache hit and kind of provide you the best performance. That is kind of the basic way that you can optimize the amount of distinct and useful content that you can keep in your cache. And it basically is in effect a cache admission policy. The idea being, if it goes to a machine and that machine doesn't have it, we have a high likelihood that no other machine in the pub has it. So we can go and fetch it and admit something into the cache that way. On the cache eviction policy, again, the simplest model, which actually works surprisingly well, is LRU, or least recently used. So the idea there is, across each machine, you're keeping track of how recently any given asset has been used, and making sure that when you need space to make way for new assets coming in, you're deleting the things which are least likely to be requested again. So the idea there is that you maximize the cache hit ratio on the boxes and deliver the best performance to the most number of people, most number of customers in our case. Where things get kind of interesting is depending on basically at scale. There's a very common term that I'm sure everyone knows, which is like the tail at scale, which means basically if you plot the frequency of access across all of the different elements, it's a very, very long tail, which means you have a few assets that have a huge kind of hit rate because they're very, very popular. And then you have a very, very long tail of lots and lots of things that are far, far less popular. So one of the things that becomes really interesting there is when you start thinking about the different sizes of files that are being requested. So this whole system is based on the overall asset that's being requested. So it's sometimes tricky to manage. How do I make sure that I am deleting kind of the right size files so that I can make way for potentially very, very large new files that need to get pulled into cache because they're very, very popular. So one of the ways that we do that is this system called hybrid LRU, which is basically tweaking and tuning the properties of least recently used to preference and depreference different types of traffic. A classic example there is if we know that a particular stream or a particular video segment being delivered, that is in cache was for a live stream, we can expect that if we can set some rough thresholds which say, you know what, that live stream is no longer live, it's 2 hours afterwards, the number of people watching it is basically zero. And as we'll talk about later on, we know there's a good chance that we had to scale up and replicate that content around. So what we can say is it's actually unlikely that I'm going to get a request for that again. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it proactively, even though it may not be at the end of the LIU queue. So part of the balance.
That's interesting to me, and it's super cool. But I think probably a lot of people don't normally relate live events and caching because they think it's being delivered and it's done. How do those things even kind of go together to enable us to do something like this? Why is it?
Great question. So one of the things that's kind of neat about our video platform is the seamless transition from live to VOD. Right. So one of the things that ends up happening here is, yes, there may be a live sporting event, but lots of our customers actually want to be able to scrub in a live stream, right? Like if you're watching a sporting event and there's a sports ball thing happens and you get very excited, you may want to watch it again just by scrubbing back, right? So a lot of our customers want to enable that for their customers. And so having those objects in store and in cache, it enables those sorts of things to happen transparently. And then the other thing that's kind of neat about the video platform is things move seamlessly from live to VOD. There's no re-encoding. There's no big lag between when a live event finishes and when it's available for playback. It's completely seamless. And so one of the ways that we can take advantage of that is if we cache it on the way in for a live stream. It's basically already there if people need to request it want to watch it in a VOD format.
So I have a question. So when we're doing all that, before we move into the next topic real quick, when we're managing caches and we're doing all this stuff intelligently, how do we not prioritize customer? How do we ensure all customers are treated fairly and equally?
Good question. So basically, the system really handles that for us. The system, the way that we approach it is basically we don't prefer any customer over another, including internal customers. So what we try to do is to deliver the best performance for everyone as we possibly can. And what that looks like is we don't make tweaks and tunes that will prefer a customer at the detriment of another one. If there is a tweak and tune that will basically will improve a customer's performance, absolutely, we do that all day. But we never do anything that we know will proactively hurt any customer.
Great. Well, that's a great thing. And I'm sure that's a whole nother topic we could have for a whole nother webinar. But let's hit on what you brought up in the last one, talking about live events and flash crowds, right? Unfortunately, as we all know right now, live events are gone down, but they're coming back every week now. There seems to be another league, another event, even marble racing that's making it big. So it's likely, we're going to have flash crowds, especially as we move forward and audiences and fans might not be able to sit down in a stadium or concert venue for a while. What specifically are flash crowds? I think would be great. And then again, what do we do in that space to manage flash crowds to make sure performance of content is not negatively affected?
Sure, I can speak a little bit about this, and Colin, please interrupt me if there are things that I'm missing here. But so to go back to your initial point, a flash crowd is something that generally we see happen with very, very large live events, right? And it's kind of a fascinating topic, honestly, if you're sitting there watching kind of what the network is doing during something like the Super Bowl or any other kind of like very large sporting event. You can see the human behavior in the traffic, which is kind of a strange thing to say. But if the game is exciting, you will see the traffic kind of rise and rise and rise at a much higher rate than if the game is kind of a blowout. So it's really kind of interesting to see that. But a flash crowd for us is basically when more people are joining the stream than would otherwise occur. So generally, two things have to happen. Generally, the system will kind of cope with people joining a stream up by default up to a very, very large number. When things get above that number, and if that kind of rate of increase of viewership is above a certain threshold, it kind of qualifies as this flash crowd scenario. So there's a few things that we do to deal with that sort of scenario. The biggest one is called as a technique that we call hot filing. I think that's something we've talked about in the past, so people can go check it out on the blog with a lot more detail than I'm going to be able to convey. But the idea is basically we've worked very hard on allowing the the infrastructure to be as general purpose as possible. So when I was talking earlier about CARP and how we route requests to particular devices, based on the likelihood of that device having the cached asset, you don't really have that problem. In fact, you have the inverse problem when you have kind of a flash crowd, because what you'll end up with is if you route all of the requests for, let's say, a particular video segment that's currently live to one box, that single box will immediately fall over. Meanwhile, you have hundreds of other machines in a particular location kind of sitting idle because they're not serving that content. So what hot filing does is proactively identifies that that particular asset or that particular stream is hot, meaning it's kind of triggered the flash crowd threshold, and we know that we need more than one machine to be able to serve it. So the idea is we are in real time analyzing the request rate that we're getting for each of those streams, and then proactively feeding back into the system, hey, this is how many machines I think you need to serve that asset. The thing that's really nice about this is that it's very, very, very flexible. It's very fast, which allows the kind of entire infrastructure to scale up and scale down and spread load around at will in a very, very hands-off manner. So it really allows us to scale up basically totally hands-off and deliver a lot of traffic very, very easily.
Even though it's hands-off, is it beneficial to customers that are watching today if they know they have an event that they're concerned about to give us a bolo, tell us to be on the lookout for, potential massive crowds within specific regions for specific events?
Yeah, look, I mean, I would say generally we love having higher engagement with our customers, right? So if you have an event that's coming up that is a big deal for you, absolutely tell us, right? The dimensions at play here are very, very large, right? So it could be that in that particular region, for that particular traffic profile, or for that particular kind of user base that you're targeting or expecting, we can do something to make the performance even better. I would say in general, the system will perform just fine without that. But yes, please, like if you have a large event, we would love to hear about it so we can help you be successful.
Better safe than sorry. Colin, you got anything to add on flash crowds or?
So flash crowds are, a critical part of what we do every day, and managing them is important. Dave covered a lot of things that are related to the application stack and managing that, but also remember that flash crowds have effect on the network too, and being able to dynamically make changes is a lot of the points that we covered earlier with the system called heteractis, of flattening the curve of what those networks look like, really helps us service those flash crowds very well. That being said, I think that it's also important to note that all of these systems work together in concert. And to Dave's point earlier of having deep engagement with our customers, that is important to us. We want everybody to be as successful as possible. So if you do have something that is critically important to you and your business, engage with us. We're excited to work with you.
Yeah, so thank you for the softball, which was our next topic there. So, we do take pride in ensuring performance for every customer. The one thing, when I was on the solutions engineering side for all those years, and Colin was as well, is just hearing from our customers about our performance was always great. But I think hearing from our customers about our human performance, how our service teams and how we engage from the second they sign on to ensure the highest quality for them, whether they're a streaming, delivery, or security customer, always made me feel really good. They knew we could be trusted. That's something that I think comes with the Verizon name too, is you've got this infrastructure backbone that people are used to being a trusted network. And I was really proud that we were able to carry that forward. And Colin, when you moved over to the role you were in now, I saw you bring a lot of those same mentality we had when we onboarded customers with, hey, how do we take care of the customers that exist as well? So do you want to go into a little bit around how we really kind of hone that expertise you were just talking about? How do we even get to know our customer's unique profile?
Yes. Thanks for the opportunity here. I think first and foremost, the most important thing to me is transparency. It's being able to understand what the customer is doing, being able to represent what it is that we see with the customer's traffic profile, and being able to have an engaged conversation about that data, about the impact of the data that we have, and getting the customer's feedback. So that transparency level, like the ability to, from the minute they onboard to the traffic that's passed, to the impact of that traffic, to the things that we learned about it, is always, I think, a beneficial conversation to have with the customer. And the tooling that we've put together over the years really allows for anybody inside the organization, from account managers to technical account managers to a NOC individual that's researching a reported concern by a customer. It's those tools allow for active engagement with the customer and our technical staff to solve problems quickly and to solve problems that are, and to solve problems quickly.
Yeah. Have you guys noticed, Dave, maybe you can take this first. Have you noticed a shift in the industry? I know we kind of go through these cycles of customers saying, I want to manage all this stuff. I want the tools to be able to do it all. I can make better decisions too. Now it seems like where they see the things that we've implemented, they're comfortable with the media platform, a content delivery network, making decisions based on them, as long as they know we're not doing it to price gouge, or these are just things that we do to ensure that we optimize the best performance.
Yeah, I think that really what from my perspective, what we've seen a change in our customer base is really and this is super encouraging and honestly really, really fun, is definitely a distinct leveling up in terms of technical aptitude, right? The folks that we end up working with in customer engagements are becoming a lot more technical. They're a lot more sophisticated. They have their own monitoring. They have their own dashboards. They have their own analyses. They have all of these things that they're leveraging to provide value to their businesses. So part of the engagement model that we go through here is to, at the start of an engagement, is kind of sharing notes, right? Which is like, hey, let's do a little POC. What did you see? Right? Here's what we saw. Right. So part of the trick there is to really understand what is the customer trying to accomplish, right? And why are they trying to accomplish what they're trying to accomplish? And then to Colin's point, working out ways that we can get that visibility natively and internally. Because what that does is it allows us to be in sync, right? We make sure that the changes that and this is kind of a theme throughout this discussion, we make sure that the changes that we're making are actually beneficial rather than kind of hurting things. And part of the trick and why that's so critical is we may be doing something that it makes a change that looks better on our side, but may actually be kind of degrading performance based on some metrics that the customer has. So making sure that you're in sync with what the customer is trying to accomplish and really establishing a relationship of trust and transparency is really critical to a successful engagement, I think, and something that we've seen a lot more willingness to engage at a really deep technical level from more of our customers. So I'm super excited for that going forwards, because it's a really great learning opportunity to make sure that we deliver a lot of value and it just avoids so many missteps down the road.
On the engagement topic and trust and transparency, there's nothing that's more important to me than having a clear understanding of what means success to the customer. And sometimes that is as easy as a communication. This is the thing that I'm looking for. I'm looking for low latency. I'm looking, and other times it is much more complex, where it's relationships between rebuffers and stream rates and ASNs that perform with a certain level of throughput. All of these things are important, and we try our best to make sure that we have a clear understanding of what all those metrics are. But what we really enjoy is when a customer also has that same data and is willing to share it with us. Some examples of this is that where we will collect a customer's data and aggregate it in ways and then overlay it on top of our own data, so that way when we engage with that customer through an event, we have a clear understanding of the metrics that are important to the customer how those metrics are overlaid onto our network, what changes we make to align the metrics that are important to the customer, so that we can have an overall positive impact to the whole stream.
Dude, that was great, guys. Awesome information. And I think, one of the things, especially with the people in the audience, that always just amazes me is we're talking about optimizing milliseconds here. And the fact that those milliseconds can actually make a world of difference in some end users' experience globally says a lot about how complicated it is to do this, and especially how complicated it is to do it right. And again, that's something we take pride in here at the media platform. So thanks, Dave. Thanks, Colin, for your time today. Thank you for everyone who joined us on the webinar today. You will be receiving a VOD version of this in your inboxes. And if you want to find out any more information, please feel free to reach out, set up a meeting, talk to us, or check out our website for some of the great technical articles we have on a lot of the subjects we covered today. So thanks again, and have a great day.